to your chairperson to go ahead and begin today's hearing.
Good morning, good people. My name is mariammemar sadeghi. I'm very happy to be with you. I participated in the We the People program the very first year it was offered many, many years ago on the bicentennial of the US Constitution. I have helped to get this type of curriculum from the Center for Civic Education into the hands of people from Iran, where I'm originally from. And I wish you the best today.
Good morning, Florida. How are you? My name is Christopher Riano. I'm a professor of constitutional law and government at Columbia University, and I am assistant counsel to the governor of the state of New York.
Hello, everyone. My name is Darcy Kern. I'm a professor of history at Southern Connecticut State University, and I'm also an alumna of the program. I did it when I was in high school many years ago, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, learned a tremendous amount, so I hope you guys have enjoyed your experience as well, and we look forward to hearing what you have learned.
Could you all introduce yourselves and also your teachers, please?
Hi, I'm Alice Rao.
Hi, my name is Clayton Finney.
Hi, my name is Grace Petty.
I'm Mrs. Everett. I'm their coach.
Nice to meet you all. All right, I'm going to read the question and then we're going to get started. So this is Unit 1, Philosophical and Historical Foundations of the American Political System. The question is number 3. Aristotle asserts in Politics that it is not the form of government, ruled by the one, the few, or the many that matters most, but rather the ends of government that are most important. Where in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution did the framers set forth the ends of government? How did the framers differ, if at all, about how the ends of government should be prioritized? Which of the ends of government set forth in the Declaration and Constitution appear to have the highest priority today? Please begin.
According to John Locke's Second Treatise of Civil Government, a government's purpose is practical, chiefly concerning the government's fulfillment of basic goals and ends. This is clearly reflected in the writing of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Under British rule, the colonists faced tyranny as the king forced gratuitous taxes upon the colonists without allowing them due representation in government. The colonists' frustration with the governmental overreach led them to revolt and create a new country. Thus, in the Declaration of Independence, the framers carefully determined limits and truths that precluded the government's dissolution into tyranny. These truths specify that all men are created equally, with the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and property. It also permitted the people to alter or abolish the government if the government became destructive in these ends. In the Constitution, the framers reinforced the ends of government that had been discussed in the Declaration. The preamble sets forth 6 goals necessary to establish the ends of government, including forming a more perfect union, ensuring domestic tranquility, providing for the common defense, promoting the general welfare, and securing the blessings of liberty for everyone in the United States. These principles help solidify the foundation for a country focused on supporting the greater good.
The framers found several discrepancies in their respective visions for the new nation. In Federalist 10, James Madison contested that the Union's emphasis on inalienable rights and a republican form of government would function as a safeguard against factions and oppression of minority groups. Many critics, including the lesser-known founder George Clinton, contended that the proposed government would not have the best interests of the people due to its size. Madison argued that the country's size would be beneficial because a large number of diverse groups would prevent the tyranny seen against British rule. Madison argued that groups would force to negotiate and compromise to arrive at solutions that would benefit the majority while still respecting the rights of minorities. Furthermore, the large size of the country would make it more difficult for factions to take control of each other and reintroduce the bad ends of the past government. The framers also disagreed over the importance of the executive branch. In Federalist 70, Alexander Hamilton argued that a singular executive leader is necessary to reinforce the ends of government set forth in the preamble. However, other prominent founders, namely Benjamin Franklin, James Madison, and George Mason, argued that without an executive council, the president would act within the interests of his friends rather than for the greater good of the Union. In the response, Hamilton explained that the energy in the executive is the leading character in the definition of a good government. It is essential to the protection of the community against foreign attacks and to the security of liberty. Hamilton believed that having one person in office would provide the executive branch with much needed energy and increased accountability.
Our modern-day government prioritizes the assurance of domestic tranquility and defense of the country. Every year, the government spends almost 20% of the entire budget on military spending. President Trump continues to emphasize this end of government, evidenced by the historic $2.2 trillion rebuilding of the nation's defense and his creation of a sixth branch of military, known as the Space Force. We also continue to prioritize the promotion of general welfare, as a large portion of the 2020 federal budget is allocated to Medicare, Social Security, and housing. In contrast, the government currently places less emphasis on ensuring the rights of life and liberty to all men. We can see this in the border facilities that house thousands of migrants that are in the United States now. 7 children have died in U.S. custody since 2019, and the conditions that the migrants have been kept in have been compared to torture facilities. Clearly, we have diverged from what the framers had in mind, and it has been at the expense of children and families that have nowhere else to go. As a cultural melting pot, we believe that the constituents and legislators alike should remember these ends of governments that the framers established to allow the country to flourish.
All right, picking right up where you left off, flourishing. How well do you think we're flourishing as a society right now? And even before the corona crisis, do you feel as though we did not have enough consensus and unity on the ends of government? Do you think that, for example, with social media and political parties, partisanship, polarization, we risk not being a cohesive union?
I think specifically to touch on the coronavirus aspect of this, I believe my definition of flourishing is definitely following the traditional ends of government where we can, specifically in terms of equality for all. And I think we have strayed from that significantly. For example, I think we are currently sacrificing the rights of all women to bodily autonomy, which is guaranteed in the Fourth Amendment, in terms of the current restrictions on abortion under the national state of emergency. So I think that is an example of us not flourishing as a country because we are no longer prioritizing equality for all.
I can answer the part about social media in respect to our current government. I think that social media has played a large role in creating polarizing effects within our society. Because we have a unitary executive, that makes it kind of prone to different party affiliations and kind of different polarizations. So I think just the nature of our government promotes polarizing and polarization and kind of different groups and different factions. So I think that definitely plays into a part of the flourishing of our country today.
I heard somebody mention, thinking about the big concept of good government, I heard somebody mention an executive council. What is an executive council?
I can address that. So essentially, that was an idea put forth primarily by Benjamin Franklin, and it was the idea of having 3 members, instead of one singular president, having 3 members of a council who collaborate to lead the country.
Are you aware of any systems that have tried something like this before?
I personally am not, but I know that it was a major consideration during the Constitutional Convention.
And do you think that would have helped with the aim of good government?
I can answer this question. I believe that having a larger group would allow for less polarization, because with a larger group, there's more opinions, more ideas, which allow for a greater wealth of background experience and knowledge that would not have allowed the polarization of our country to grow to the point that it has in today's time. And as Grace, my teammate, already said, with one person as a leader, different party affiliations are possible, and that can create a greater polarization in our country.
However, one could argue that having a council of executives could lead to a much slower governmental process because, you know, it's much more difficult to have 3 people or even 2 people agreeing on an issue than having one executive who makes the decision.
You guys raised an interesting point about the border retention facilities and life and liberty, and you said that those are violating life and liberty. And I think there's an inherent tension in the Declaration of Independence, which says that, you know, these rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are for all men, right, who are created equal. But the Constitution starts, "We the people of the United States." So I think there's a tension between the Constitution, which is for the United States, and the Declaration, which talks about the rights of all people. And I wonder if you could address that tension and how we might think about resolving this tension between rights for all and rights that are specific to the United States.
So I think that's a really good question, but I also want to point out the fact that the Declaration of Independence was more of a document to kind of inspire and set up the architecture for our government, whereas the Constitution is a living, breathing document that we abide by, and the Declaration of Independence supports that document and is kind of its backup. So I think that "We the People" is definitely the thing that we should abide by in the Constitution, whereas the Declaration of Independence says all men. However, we don't necessarily live by that document.
I actually respectfully disagree because I believe the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, and of course our government as a whole, are built on John Locke's principle. And I think the rights of life and liberty are inalienable rights that are guaranteed in the state of nature as well as in our government, and they apply to all men according to his basic theories.
And I also agree with my teammate Alice on this. I feel like when the framers made the Constitution in mind, they had the idea that our country would be a safe haven for all immigrants that left their homes and wanted to find a new home. That's what made the U.S. in its heart. And as a cultural melting pot, if we were to start giving, could I finish or?
Yes.
Okay, so as a country, if we were to stop being the cultural melting pot that we are, and we stop letting immigrants have the rights of normal Americans, then we would lose a part of the identity that we fought so hard to break apart from the British Empire.
Thank you. All right. Well, you guys have a lot to be proud of. You have no reservations about presenting your own views and about showing your appreciation for specific rights, about our history. And that is maybe the most important thing that you can take away from studying this curriculum and really immersing yourself in it. I hope that you have come to really value it as a part of your own life as a citizen, because not a lot of people have the opportunity to engage in this depth with this curriculum, and especially Unit 1 as you have. And I hope that you carry it forward in everything you do. Alice, I enjoyed hearing about, your thoughts on women's rights and equality. Clayton, it was fantastic to end with a focus on inclusion, pluralism, diversity, immigration. It's clear that you guys were not afraid to think about what it all means to you and to put it out there. And I congratulate you on that. I know it's hard to come together as a team when it's virtual, but you guys did a great job. And I wish you the best in your future when you're off to college and all of that.
I thought you guys did an excellent job. I liked how you talked so often about faction and how it was there from the beginning, and how the founders were so perceptive about human nature that tends to factionalize. And the emphasis on the large size was really good. I thought your answers to my question were very sophisticated. Grace, you talked about how the US Constitution applies only to the US, and then Alice, you challenged her on that. I think that was good to see disagreement. And I like, Alice, how you returned to the state of nature and Locke, And then Clayton, I like how you ended by talking about America as a safe haven for immigrants. I thought all three of you did really well on that. My only point that I'm going to add is there is two important historical examples of states that were led by an executive council. Sparta had two kings, and Rome under the Republic was led by what were called consuls. They had two consuls that were elected yearly, and they could only hold the position for 1 year. But it wasn't a council so much as it was two people who were leading, but it was an executive that was not a singular person. So I think Rome and Sparta would be the best examples there. But this is minute details we're talking about now. You guys did a very, very good job.
Yeah, I was just so impressed that you brought that up. So incredibly impressed, because so few students even have any idea of the fact that that was talked about, or an idea of the fact that that's a possibility. And you can see modern day Switzerland has a non-unitary presidency, where if you ask any Swiss citizen who the president is, they don't know. They just know that there's a 7-person council, and it rotates every year, and it kind of just changes, and that's the council that makes executive decisions. And it's just like my fellow judge said, I mean, there are historical examples, but don't worry at all that you couldn't figure that out. I only opened that door because I was so impressed that you even noticed that that was an option. I thought you guys worked together very, very well. I obviously was very impressed with your opening, with your answers. You brought up some really deep ideas that people don't challenge, because I'm sure that Grace, Alice, and Clayton, if you were to talk to your classmates and say, do you know the president could be a couple people and not just one, that they would kind of sit there and they'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, that's not possible. Like that, but actually, that's a theory that's completely possible. So to even bring that into the conversation shows a level of understanding that's incredibly impressive. So you should be very proud of yourselves. You did a great job today.